Seeing these flames happen, she pulls back, closes her eyes for a second, and raises her scarred hand with the sphere that she unlocked Ukutoa with. It raised up. At that point, you watch as the water from the ocean begins to rise.
Oh.
All right.
Oh God!
It's a fourth level spell. So I need you to roll.
I know.
Oh,
And
boy.
it's a disadvantage.
Disadvantage.
Where'd you go?
I rolled a 14 and a 19. She fails.
She does.
If you clicked on this video, I'm willing to bet that you at least know something about D&D. If you're concerned about that for some reason, you don't have to worry. Dungeons & Dragons has been around for decades, but the popularity it's enjoyed in the last couple of years has been unparalleled by any tabletop role-playing game, maybe ever. I think it's safe to say that this badge of geekdom has grown into something almost mainstream at this point. It's definitely partially because Western culture has embraced stuff like comics and fantasy more wholeheartedly in the last decade, and it would be silly to ignore the impact of streaming when looking at how many people are picking up the game. However, I believe there are other contributing factors for the success of the most recent edition of D&D intrinsic to the way that it was designed. I believe that 5th edition had the goal of appealing to more people than any other tabletop built into its core. It has been specifically designed to cater to as many people as possible because of its simplified design philosophy, liberated approach to character creation, and flexible gameplay. These factors together make the game easy to learn for new players, deep enough to stay invested for longtime D&D fans, and applicable to a wide variety of types of campaigns and playstyles. D&D 5th edition has a little something for everyone baked into many aspects of it, and I think this focus has helped maintain its current position in the public eye. So, checking the thesis off the list, let's get into the nitty-gritty. You're playing D&D for the first time. Maybe you're excited about it, or maybe someone dragged you into it while rattling off a long list of facts about how quirky and cool their character is, and you agreed to check it out in an attempt to shut them up. Somebody chucks a 320-page hardcover book the size of a dinner plate at you and tells you to make a character. Flipping through it furiously, you wonder, why did YouTube internet man say D&D is easy? Well, I'll tell you why it's easy. If you haven't learned math since 4th grade, you are qualified to play this game. D&D 5th edition makes it so that anyone proficient in addition, subtraction, and multiplying and dividing numbers by only 2, is more than capable of success. Gone are the days of typing in complex equations to your calculator. Now all you need to be scared of is figuring out how healthy your 50 hit point character is after taking 17 points of getting hit in the face with a club damage. I'm not exactly bad at math, but this isn't exactly tough stuff, even if you aren't smarter than a 5th grader. Figuring out weaknesses and resistances and their effects is technically a step up from just to add number together, but it's nothing your young cousin who was really into sword and shield can't accomplish. Most of the other really intense math of previous editions has been replaced by the intuitive advantage system. If your character is in a position where they can really excel at hitting or looking or saying something, you don't really need to do a math problem to figure out how well they did. All you need to do is roll 2 dice and pick the higher one. Disadvantage works similarly in situations where the odds are stacked against your character. If you're trying to roll to persuade a noble to give you his prized family heirloom after defeating a goblin in his basement, your dungeon master might tell you to roll 2 dice and take the lower value. This mechanic is so simple that elementary school students will scoff and say they learned which number the alligator wants to eat years ago. D&D is also friendly to new players because there's a spectrum of complexity among the 13 playable classes in the game. The simplest classes like Barbarian, Fighter, Ranger, and Warlock offer easy bread and butter options without overwhelming players with too many systems. The player's handbook comes with suggested starting builds for every single class, so if you can't decide what your character should be like, they have you covered. There's a lot lurking in the rulebook to read and know, but you don't have to know very much of it to have a good time playing D&D. But for the sake of it, let's say you stick around for a bit and actually enjoy yourself. 13 sessions later, your campaign is winding down, and you retire Eric, who's your fairly bland level 7 barbarian. He never really did settle the score with the witch who murdered his dad in the paragraph of backstory you wrote 5 minutes before session 1 started, but you knew something he did accomplish. Swinging his greatsword probably close to 500 times, once or twice a turn, for weeks. There's a lot more to the game than attacking or failing every saving throw not related to Eric's ability to lift the collapsing cave roof after triggering a trap he coincidentally didn't see. This feeling of dissatisfaction is what the customizability of D&D characters feeds on. Let it be known that the only other system I've played is Call of Cthulhu, but D&D is full to the brim with character options you can explore. 5th edition lets you play any race, with any class, with any background, regardless of how flavorful or viable it is. Who cares if Eric was actually a gnome all along and can't bench his weight? Nothing in the game's mechanics prevents him from being a barbarian, and having weaknesses to overcome can be a great way to create a compelling character. There's no need to optimize if you don't want to. You can choose to embrace different tropes or deconstruct them. There's a ton of mechanical freedom as well, given that each class is an array of subclasses to pick from, which often have huge bearings on what your character actually can do. Casters get to pick from an ever-increasing list of spells, and if that isn't enough for you, you can forego increases to your base stats as you level up to pick from a list of feats, which are additional special abilities that can be tacked on to any character. You can even level up in more than one character class at a time. There are interesting synergies between many seemingly unrelated abilities that might not be clear when you first start playing, but you can uncover them by theory crafting, browsing through forums, or carefully reading the player's handbook. D&D characters are a great medium for self-expression, and there's very little like talking to someone else who plays and gushing about the characters you made and what you like about them. 5th edition has received quite a bit of new official content outside of the original player's handbook, which means that options players can choose from are drawn from an ever-deepening pool. Even if you try all official 13 classes and feel like you've done everything, 5e is also specifically built to accommodate player-made content. It's even encouraged. Character backgrounds in particular can be chosen from a list, but the player's handbook specifically states that this aspect of every character can be designed by the player, and can be used to offer your character a little bit more of a touch of you. Other homebrew content, like races, classes, subclasses, and feats can be incredibly fun as well, and are commonly used in many campaigns, even the really famous ones. You can be what you want to be in 5th edition, and I think this aspect of the game's design makes it fun for a wide variety of audiences. The freedom for designing characters in 5th edition is excellent, but an equally open aspect of the game are the many options for dungeon masters when creating campaigns. Dungeons & Dragons has never been an all-in commitment to one gameplay experience, and I'll elaborate what I mean by that. At its core, D&D is known for having 3 gameplay pillars: exploration, socializing, and of course combat. In practice, gameplay can extend outside of these pillars, and it does often. Logical problem solving, whether it's through looking at clues from detective work or testing solutions to a dungeon puzzle, is featured in a variety of campaigns. Other examples include gambling and other minigames, listening to a character recount a tale, or even joking around with friends. Other tabletop games sometimes specialize into one or two of these focuses. Something like Warhammer, for example, is mostly combat from the limited amount I know about it, and probably has a much more complex and enriched system for that than D&D. But the joy of D&D is that even if you like only one of its 3 pillars or other offshoots, you probably can have a fun time playing with other people, even if they like different parts. There's definitely stereotypes about the theater major who lives for days where the party does nothing but talk to people in town, or the player on their phone the whole session until their sorcerer paladin gets to show off that new combo in combat that requires a giant bag of dice to calculate the damage of. These sorts of players definitely do exist, but most people generally draw enjoyment from all aspects of the game, just in different amounts. The variation between D&D's pillars makes for natural breaks from a certain style of gameplay, making it harder to get tired of the game. Additionally, D&D can bend in favor of one pillar over the other two in order to cater towards what players in the Dungeon Master enjoy the most. If your whole party wants to cut stuff apart, there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to do combat after combat because there isn't a wrong way to have fun. The game should be played in a way that makes everyone have the most fun, and nothing is wrong as long as people are enjoying themselves. This philosophy of fun over everything stretches beyond just the 3 gameplay pillars, however. When you're a new dungeon master and reading a handbook you spent a fair amount of money on, some of the greatest advice is in the book itself. Any rule is just a guideline in this game. There are other games that must adhere closely to their rules to work, but D&D is not always one of them. Pretty much every rule can be changed, adjusted, or maybe even removed, and a skilled dungeon master often messes around with how the game is played. Sometimes they even do it in the middle of the game itself, when a player wants to try to do something creative. This is so common that it even has its own term for it, the rule of cool, and it can be really enjoyable to include a healthy dose of it when running games. I know I talked about it earlier, but added or adjusted rules for gameplay called homebrew content is very widespread. Homebrew content does not apply to character creation only. The Dungeon Master's Guide contains a whole section on how to adjust various parts of the game, and encourages Dungeon Masters to do so. And why does this help the game appeal so widely? Well, because you can make whatever you want with it. One of your players wants to build a complex piece of magic machinery, you can create rules for that. Your players are having combat aboard an airship against other sky pirates? Never fear, just make up something on the fly, or prepare it carefully when planning your session, or write detailed rules for it so far in advance that you give your party an airship just so you have the opportunity to use them. But what if you don't want your campaign to be medieval at all? Boom! Bows are now guns, Eric's greatsword is now a large steel bar you found, and your group is on the streets of Brooklyn looking to clear out a ring of drug runners encroaching on the territory of an opposing crime family. The game is incredibly flexible, and this flexibility gives it a sort of jack-of-all-trades, universal system type of feeling. It allows players and dungeon masters to kind of bend and shape what kinds of gameplay focuses, themes, and aesthetics they want out of it, with incredible precision. D&D 5th edition is the tabletop for everyone and everything, and it has been designed with modularity in its roots, which is what makes it, in my opinion, the people's game.
The best friends in the world. There's nothing you can say about that to me that I don't already know. When I give up a million